the number and then the first
Hi,
decimal. But I was like, oh, so I have to round it up and then put .0. And I was so tired, like it didn't hit me till after I turned in.
She probably.
So I wrote all my answers.
I need help. I don't know what the parts of speech are for these.
I don't like cursive. I just guessed for adjectives.
I have all the
Just
parts of
okay.
speech
So for
on mine.
nouns, a, and a the are like what a noun starts with. Usually, but we don't even. They don't use that. They just use like blame or like they. Just
Like
use
if
the
you
word.
could put like
Yeah,
blame.
you could put it.
That would be a noun. Good, because that was one of my questions.
Wait, isn't it just blames and now?
Yeah.
I was wondering if we could elaborate on regular individuals.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, it's
We're gonna talk about it.
I wanted
Yeah,
to.
she changed
I
it
wasn't
to
really
blame.
sure how to answer this.
That's not what it was on my paper.
Wait, what is it now?
It's a verb.
Okay, thought so.
That is not true. Is delay a noun?
I think so.
Wait, Lauren, can you believe we like 2 years ago wore shorts? It can be either.
Okay, there's still snow up
Last year,
there.
so silent was a noun.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
So
this
it's
week.
Thank you.
Because you could say we have to delay our trip, or there is a delay on our flight, right? So it could be.
Or last year, Hannah, she wore shorts.
Packed correctly.
I thought it said to delay.
Yeah, I started at 12:30 last night for this. Well, actually, I wrote them down, so I didn't know. It's okay, that's how it usually works.
These down this morning.
Yeah, and then last year. Yeah.
Well, it's not hard, because it's 15
If you don't know,
words.
if you don't need to know the parts. Yeah.
But we did.
Because like the first half, we didn't have to know the first half.
Do you guys have the one where it's like all R's and like?
Yes.
Oh,
I hated that.
Yeah.
It'll
We have
change
like the
next
same
year.
list as last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly as last year, and she's like, "Oh, it's not," and I went home. I was like,
Next
"Yeah, it's because I checked it." But I mean, that's okay. Then it kind of knows me more.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll just kind of talk and go along, and let me come check your homework first. But Holly, you asked about what did you just ask about? Rugged individualism, yeah, okay.
In order to answer that, your question.
Right, okay. Okay, so, rugged individualism, what were you able to take from this?
I think we.
I
I think we were number 4.
Right. But we can still talk about what rugged individualism is,
Oh,
though.
we thought we like answered the wrong question.
No, I don't,
Okay.
right, because I did have you do 1 and 4.
Okay.
Yeah, let me double check here in the book.
Question 4 was the one we had to answer about like yeah, about like why don't Franklin, whatever.
Yeah, okay, so,
Thought that it would be easy for me.
yes, okay, so, let's talk about, we'll answer Holly's question first. It's important for you to know this anyway, what this means, and then, that'll sort of leak in a little bit to number 4. So, individualism, right, we even have the word individual in it. What is rugged? When you hear the term rugged, what does that mean? Just an everyday conversation, Aaron?
Worn or something like that, maybe?
Yeah, kind of worn, kind of rough around the edges, when you go camping, right, you're in rugged conditions. It's not everything's all flowery and nice and comfortable. It's sort of the opposite of comfortable. But, so Herbert Hoover, we'll kind of make a list here of the exact things that he did during the Great Depression and the things that he didn't do to try to help people along. So rugged individualism, this is this idea that Hoover had that each person is responsible for him or herself. And shouldn't need to rely on any kind of what we call like direct handout or basically government assistance, where the government is giving people money directly or resources or something like that. Okay. And for Hoover, this was a moral thing for him, right? So, you know, his thinking was that America is founded on the principle that each person is going to compete against one another. Each person is going to be able to pick himself up and, you know, look for work, should be able to attain work, should be able to hold on to it, and provide for his family. And so, and this is not an unreasonable view to have. However, during the Depression, people felt like he should have made an exception because it was a very extreme case, and there were millions of people who didn't have jobs, and it wasn't their fault. They couldn't do anything about it. So this idea of Hoover's made him a very unpopular president, because, you know, in times of hardship especially, citizens want to know that they can count on their leader, they can count on their president to help them out, and they want to feel like they have a sense of safety in their government, which people really didn't feel that way. So we'll take a look today at some of the things that he did to try to patch this. So yeah, this is basically what this means. And the fact that the term rugged is involved implies that it's difficult. It's not an easy thing to do to support yourself, which is why, you know, we're always very we really admire people who can do that, and that's why other countries admire Americans for that reason as well. Yeah, Maddie?
So would like government handouts, would that, like food stamps, would that be an example?
Yeah,
of that?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So in defining what this is here, that would be really any kind of aid or help that the federal government is giving to people, without the people paying them back in any way. So it's kind of like a charity thing, but on a bigger scale, on a government scale. Okay. So for number 4 then, when Franklin Roosevelt, who would happen to be the next president after Hoover, heard about the attack on the Bonus Army, why was he so certain that Hoover was going to lose? So what was this? What was the Bonus Army? What were they doing? And how did Hoover react to them? Matt?
It was like a group of veterans that were protesting pretty much about how like they want their extra money.
Yeah.
Like now instead of a few months later.
Right.
Or maybe it might have been like a year later.
A couple years later,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he wasn't allowing it, so then he just got like the soldiers at that time to like come and like take them away, and some went, but about 2,000 stayed. Like, gas them.
Yeah, they used all this violent force on the group, which was especially bad because they were using violent force on veterans, right? Who were these men that had risked their lives, gone to fight for the country, and so they were like, geez Louise, not only are you not giving us the money that you owe us, but now you're attacking us with tear gas, and you're coming and poking us with your, you know, all kinds of things. So that really turned the public view of Hoover around even more. Like, people just didn't have any trust in him then. Yeah.
Also during that incident, an 11-month-old baby died and an 8-year-old boy was blinded.
Yeah. Yeah,
That would kind of change people's opinion.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, Holly, what were you gonna say?
Pretty much what he just.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good, so we have innocent people, innocent kids that were hurt as well. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
Well, especially because Hoover wanted to prevent the group from becoming violent, but he used violent force, which is
Yes,
contradicting itself.
Yes.
So it's.
right, so he came off as a hypocrite too.
Yeah.
He was seen as cold-hearted, hypocritical, unwilling to help, so, yeah, good responses there. Okay. So I think what we'll do, let's see, I had a few shortening ideas, but I think instead what will be more helpful is to make a list just of the exact things that Hoover did during his administration for the Depression. So we'll just put here, okay, so what were some specific things, excuse me, and they don't have to be in chronological order by any means. What were some specific things? Paige?
One good thing he did was he offered a lot of like large construction jobs that required a lot of people, like the what's now called Hoover Dam.
Yeah. Good, Hoover Dam or Boulder Dam it was originally called. And has anybody ever visited the Hoover Dam before? It's right in between Nevada and, must be Arizona. And it's this huge dam, basically, that runs on the river. And obviously its purpose is to control how much water is going in and out on the river. But anyway, so he fronted this project for the construction of the dam, and so like Paige said, this was great because it created a lot of jobs for people. Okay, what else did he do specifically? Okay, let me ask, I'll ask you a few specific questions and see if you can come up with the action that he took. What did he do about helping farmers? Something specific there, if you need to look back through your book, see if you can find it. He put a specific act into place, and also a specific organization. If you look at page 498 in the book here, there's the section called Boulder Dam and Other Government Projects. Yeah, Holly?
Our Congress passed the federal home.
Okay, yeah, so that happened. That was not just for farmers, but for Americans in general. So we'll put that up here too. Okay. And what was it that this Bank Act did? Really, it's sort of evident in the title here, but what did it do for people, Matt?
They gave out loans so that less people would go before the
Yeah, exactly. So yesterday we talked about when you buy a home, typically you take out a mortgage because usually you can't just afford to give the bank $200,000 right off the bat. Oh, here you go, right? You have to pay it in chunks most of the time. And so what this act did was that it temporarily made people's mortgages or house payments a little bit more manageable. The government helped out with the funding there. And they also allowed farmers to do what's called refinancing, which is kind of reconstructing the amount that they're going to pay to their bank each month, gave them longer time periods to pay back debts on their farms and things like that. And so the thought behind this, like Max said, was that they wouldn't have to go into to have their home foreclosed or their farm foreclosed or taken away by the bank. Okay, good. Let's see here. He also had the Federal Farm Board, which was more of an organization than an act. And so this initiative helped to regulate crop prices. So kind of a lot of economical terms here, but so in other words, they were able to raise prices of crops that farmers had produced, so that farmers could sell these items and make money off of them. And what they did was they initially took a lot of these goods that were produced on the farms. They took these off of the selling market, just temporarily, so that the demand for these crops would go up. So, for example, you know, if your family needed to purchase wheat or something like that, and it was unavailable to you for several weeks, then when it becomes available to you again, you'd be more likely to pay more for it because you want it and you really need it more. So this was sort of their initiative here. Let's withhold it for a little while, and then the consumers will be willing to pay more for it later on. Well, in theory, this was a good idea, but when actually put to the test, it didn't work out so well. And the reason was because people couldn't afford to buy it anyway. So even if they wanted it, even if they could have paid more for it, even if they would have paid more for it, they couldn't. So, okay. Let's see here. We also had something that Hoover did right off the bat was that he tried to help counsel big business leaders and local governments, like the heads of each state government. And then also the major banks. And he thought that in doing so, he would be able to give them, some new ideas and tips on how to get themselves out of their financial hole. And he also was able to give some large government funds to these big businesses. In the book, they mention the idea of the trickle-down effect. Does anybody know what's meant by that? What does it mean if something trickles down? This is Hoover's intent in giving large amounts of money to big businesses. What was he hoping would happen by doing that? Holly?
The businesses would make money, and then it would go down to the smaller businesses and then the people and the consumers and so just the domino effect.
Yeah, exactly, kind of a domino effect, that's a good way to put it. So the trickle down, it literally, if you look at it in a visual way, we've got the, Hoover and the federal government up here, okay, and they're giving money to, like the railroads, for example. And then his thinking was that if the railroad industry, has more money to give out, then they can hire more workers. Those workers obviously would be able to get paid more. They would be able to feed their families, right? So eventually it will lead down to the people. But the problem during the Great Depression was that it was not soon enough because people were starving. So again, in theory it was a good idea, but it wasn't quite enough direct help. All right, let's see here. Okay, so those were the major positive things that he did, at least positive in theory. And then what were some of his bad moves then? Negative things that he did. Marnie.
When there was the bonus army walking on to, kind of like on Washington, and they were like the veterans of the war, and they wanted to get their payment from the war, and Hoover felt threatened by that, so he sent the army to go get them and push them out.
Yeah, so definitely the bonus army, that whole shenanigan was a huge negative in the Hoover administration. What else? Yeah, Lauren?
This isn't really like a negative, I mean it kind of is, but talked about how like he tried to make changes with the Depression, like he tried to improve, but he didn't really do anything that actually improved it, so the people were kind of like upset.
Right, yeah, so he put the public against his favor, basically. He kind of pretended to do some things. The other negative thing too is that he really didn't do anything to take action until he found out that the public was mad at him, and then he thought, oh, okay, I better save my rear end and actually look like I'm doing something. So, not a favorite president of people in the past. Not that he was a bad man or anything like that, because he wasn't. It's just that his own personal political philosophy sort of stood in the way of him really helping out during this time of crisis when people needed him most. So, and the other thing too is that, like I mentioned before, typically in history, if there's a recession or even a depression of some sort, it tends to fix itself. The American economy is nice in that way that it tends to pick itself up and re-regulate again, just with people going out and buying things, right? You're helping the economy when you do that. But this particular depression, it was like, unless something big happened, they really couldn't change it. They couldn't improve anything. So, that was, pretty unfortunate there. Let's see here. Okay, we talked about those things. Okay. Okay, that was it. So on Monday, we're going to, I have a video that I found that gives, people who are alive during the Great Depression are kind of giving their own personal stories of what happened to them during that time and how their families coped with things, and it has a lot of neat pictures as well from that time. Let me come around and I'll just check your homework real quick. And then we will not have any homework for over the weekend. Okay. Yes.
My sister, she sneezes